Hey everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. We're going to take a look at Volume 2 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic by IDW Comics. The larger graphic novel format of this is really expensive. I think it's out of print, so you have to go on to the collectible secondary market. You might have to pay like $30 to get it shipped from the UK or something. So today I'm just going to review the omnibus edition, which is functionally the same. It's just printed slightly smaller. I'll see if I can get the bigger edition later as a collectible. So very good. Another 9 out of 10. Does everything I liked in Volume 1, just with a new story. We also have a new art and writing team. I think the writer is Heather Newfer, and the artist is Amy Meberson. Amy's style is a perfectly good fit for My Little Pony. She's not quite as like hectic and dense as Andy Price, but she's got a really clean, really solid cartoon style that works really well for the story being told. So 9 out of 10. So this is another one where the story's really carrying it. And I think the strength of early seasons of My Little Pony was always, the framing was always very girly and adorable, targeted at very young girls, but then it would always low-key deliver really interesting fantasy and adventure concepts. So there are a lot of pretty rich ideas from fantasy and pulp adventure stories in this, and some very creative spins on classic adventure stories. So they're always very archetypally strong. I want to tell a quick little personal story to kind of like help illustrate it. So my very first job was at a gas station, and we sold cartons and cartons of Marlboro cigarettes and towers of Busch Light beer, right? Those two products created the economic conditions for my summer job, right? So my coworker was this big, tall, beefy guy, like probably 6'6", and one day he just kind of like brings up the brony phenomenon. It's like, can you believe that? What's the deal with all these grown men watching My Little Pony? And then I kind of like, have you watched it, Marmaduke fan? I kind of admitted, yeah, I've seen the first season. It's pretty good. Really? Well, what's it like? So he got me to talk about it all day. And then after I kind of like admitted I'd watched all of season 1 and liked it, and I hadn't caught up, at the very end of the day, as we're closing up after midnight, he says, I've got a confession to make. I've watched all 3 seasons 3 times. And so after he outed himself as a brony, he then, once he knew I had watched the show too, the rest of the time I worked at that gas station, he told me all of his fan theories and all of the fan fictions he was reading about My Little Pony. He low-key got me a USB drive with all the seasons on it. That was just one of my favorite moments. So the reason that's important is, as he was talking about the fan fictions and fan theories and just geeking out to me, one of the things he was talking about was, at the time this show was coming out, there was a lot of interest in Nightmare Moon because she seemed like a very interesting villain. She's the major villain of season 1, and they don't really do much with her after season 1. They just kind of like blast her with the power of friendship. She's freed from the power of Nightmare Moon. She gets to go back to being a good guy again. And you don't really, I think maybe like there are a couple hints of her, about the character coming back. The character's name is Luna when she's not under the control of Nightmare Moon. So it seemed like kind of a missed potential. And so, of course, fan fiction people would write stories about that. This is about Nightmare Moon, and it's actually building on ideas in the show in an interesting way. So one thought is these comics don't feel like filler. They're not just doing really capable, exciting adventure stories. They're doing capable, exciting adventure stories that fit nicely in with the world of the show and actually seem to add to the show in an interesting way. I really can't believe I missed this when it came out. So the premise is all the girls are having weird recurring nightmares that are waking them up over and over again. They have a sleepover to see if that helps them. And all of them have a nightmare featuring their greatest fear. But Rarity, aka Best Pony, has the most intense of the nightmares, where she's afraid she's going to be abandoned by her friends forever and be replaced by who could that possibly be? Maybelle. Maybelle looks a little bit like Mabel Pines from Gravity Falls. It's an Easter egg. There are lots of little something about the Easter eggs, by the way. There are lots of little Easter eggs. Sometimes I'll see a little thing in the background art and I'll just know, okay, that's supposed to be an Easter egg of something, but I can't catch the reference. They do a nice job of just kind of like adding it so it's there if you spot it, but if you don't spot it or you don't get it, it doesn't really interrupt the story. They don't like slam the brakes on the story to have a reference that takes you out of the world. It's just kind of like there, and then you keep moving on. So Rarity's nightmare is very intense, and in a very, very emotional scene, her friends aren't able to save her. So this is going to be important because this is building up something. I'll talk about it now. So what we learn later is the Nightmare Force deliberately chose Rarity because it believed she had the greatest insecurity that they could play on to brainwash her. So all of them have a fear, but Rarity's fear is specifically being alone and being forgotten by her friends because her good quality is she's generous. But her weakness is she's generous in part because of this fear. She wants to have her generosity recognized. She doesn't want to be forgotten. So that's something that the satanic Luciferian force can play on. She's so afraid of being alone that they can convince her, oh, your friends have forgotten you. You should help us now. So that's really smart because it's recognizing her personality archetype and having a dark, demonic coded type force play on that weakness deliberately. Another smart thing is the characters basically have a power of friendship. They, when their forces combine, the 6 of them are the elements of harmony, and the elements of harmony is a friendship Kamehameha blast that can blast away all evil forces. So the bad guys deliberately get a smart idea. Well, if they need all 6 of them to do the friendship is magic blast, let's pull away Rarity is best pony, and now they're not a complete set anymore. They can't utilize the elements of harmony. That's smart because that's having the villains react to a condition in the universe and make a plan based on a weakness of the characters. Their magic only works when all 6 of them are together. So that was pretty smart. And then we're reintroduced to Luna, and it's clear that Luna is traumatized by her experience being possessed by the force of Nightmare Moon. And this is interesting because in the show, it's just sort of like, oh no, we feel sorry for her. She was brainwashed. Boom, she's back to normal. Now she's a good guy again. And now we're building on that idea a little deeper. So Luna was possessed by Nightmare Moon, but there was an element of Luna that was conscious throughout. And this is something that she's sensitive about and traumatized about because, of course, while she was under the control of this evil force for 1,000 years, she was still her. It played on her fears and insecurities. So for her, this is sort of like an alcoholic being tempted with alcohol again. She's afraid that if she comes into proximity with the Nightmare Force again, it's going to take her over again. So we're getting to build Luna's character after her redemption arc in the show. So I just thought this was dynamite. Their way of getting into the moon is they create a lasso that acts as a tightrope to the moon, and they have to walk across it. That's like a really pregnant, really fascinating, magical idea. They bring Spike along, of course, and I'll talk about this now because this is actually like a really nice, subtle setup. So Spike comes along dressed in a suit of armor because he has a crush on Rarity and he wants to be the knight in shining armor who rescues Rarity, the damsel in distress. So this story really utilizes Spike quite well. Spike is a lot younger than the ponies. I think they're supposed to be the equivalent of girls out of whatever pony high school is, and he was hatched out of an egg and raised by Twilight Sparkle. So he's like the equivalent of her little brother. He's kind of like a baby compared to the rest of them. And as a little boy, he just wants to grow up and be big and strong, right? And the fact that it's Rarity in trouble is adding a lot of tension to this for him. That'll be built up later. Rarity's getting brainwashed by the nightmare creatures. And I thought this was intelligently written too, because their temptation is like Lucifer. Lucifer didn't come up to Eve and say, hey, Eve, God's a big fat liar. Lucifer says to Eve, hath God said, you may not eat of any tree in this garden or you will surely die? And so that's a genius question because he's not the one telling her what he thinks. He's tricking Eve into following his pattern of thought. Has God really said that? Are you sure that God knows what he's talking about, Eve? So he's a master of crafting subtle questions. And then Christ in the wilderness, whether or not you believe Satan and Lucifer are the same characters, Satan's also a master of this. Satan uses scripture to twist his argument. Jump off this roof, Jesus. Hath God not said, my angels will catch you? And then Jesus has to answer scripture with scripture. Do not put the Lord your God to the tests. A demonic character doesn't just throw the temptation at you, do this or else. They deliver the temptation to you in such a way that it makes sense. They tell Rarity, you can help us, Rarity. We'll never forget you. We'll never stop appreciating you. And they keep working on her. So the girls, of course, all have to face their nightmares again. And through the power of friendship, they're all able to wake each other up and snap each other out of the nightmares. But who didn't have her friends there to help her? Rarity didn't. So Rarity has been possessed and has become Nightmare Rarity, which is also pregnant for Luna because she's been through this before, and now she's seeing it happen to someone else. So they do not have the elements of harmony, Kamehameha blast to get out of this one. How are they going to get out of this one? Meanwhile, in Ponyville, they're preparing for an attack on Ponyville from the Shadow Forces. Big fight, and the girls are all captured and put in prison. And who's left? Spike. The tiniest little guy is all they've got left. So when Spike, I thought there's a very smart use of Spike because he's a little boy. He wants to be a big hero. Now it's all on him. So he even kind of like sings his own theme song to emphasize just like how young he still is. Let's skip ahead a little bit. So Spike faces a temptation. So the secret that Nightmare Rarity has been hiding is they can control nightmares, but they can also control people's dreams. So Spike, making his way through the castle, has this vision where Rarity comes out and tells him he's her king. He's she wants to marry him. And all he has to do is just forget about everything else. And that kind of like weirds him out. And then once he sort of notices something's off about this, he asks her about her jewel, and Rarity can't recognize it. So he realizes this isn't the real Rarity. So it's a combination of moral courage, this is wrong, it's wrong for me to forget about everything else, and intelligence, something's not right about this. So when he wakes up, I thought this was just metal. When he wakes up, the crown that's floating above his head is really an iron collar and chains. I just love the fantasy concept in this. So Spike is a little boy. What does he want to do? He wants to be a big hero, wants to be a big knight in shining armor and rescue Rarity. What is the temptation the satanic force offers them? Oh, well, I'll just marry you right now. I'll be your Rarity, and just don't worry about anything else. Who cares if you live a lie? I'll give you quote unquote sex. I'll give you marriage and you'll be my king. So it's offering him the temptation that he wants without him doing the work to actually earn it. For Spike to be a hero, he can't just skip to the end and rescue the princess and marry the princess. He's actually got to do the work to rescue the people he cares about. So I just thought that was great. So meanwhile, Luna is essentially terrified of the nightmare forces. So she's basically afraid she can't do anything to help in this situation. Spike and the others come up with a daring escape, and it all leads to a climactic battle. So we hit multiple emotional beats. So Luna finds her courage, and this is especially good for her because she's fighting against the force that once controlled her and that turned her into an evil person. So it's kind of like a full resolution of her arc. The 5 friends and Spike arrive, and it takes a combination of Rarity fighting against the brainwashing force herself and her friends coming together to remind her of who she is for her to break out so that they can combine their powers again, and the day is saved. So I loved how Rarity's kind of like fall into darkness was handled. It kind of like emphasized a lot of what was interesting is that they sort of targeted her as the weakest one. There was even like a conversation where one of the bad guys said, well, why didn't we go after the yellow one, Fluttershy? She's so shy and demure. She seems like the perfect person to go to. And the Nightmare Force explains, no, Rarity's the most insecure of them because she's the most sensitive to losing her friends out of them. I thought that was pretty bright. And I really appreciated seeing essentially a resolution to Luna's story arc, because I don't think we got to see much of how she was affected by her negative experience of becoming evil in the show. So very, very smart, great fantasy concepts throughout. Basically, if you loved the action adventure oriented episodes of the show. The show is basically divided into mostly slice of life comedy with 1 or 2 episodes at the beginning and end of every season that are action and adventure oriented. If you love the adventure oriented episodes of the show, this comic is totally for you. Very smart. It's nailing everything that was great about the early seasons of the show. That's it. We're not going to talk about volume 3 right now because we're running long. Love you guys. Catch you later.